Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I'm going to be discussing All You Need Is Kill, the manga version. Now, just before I start talking about the manga, I gotta say that I have seen the film, which was renamed Edge of Tomorrow, which for the home video release was renamed Live, Die, Repeat. A lot of renaming, you know? Anyway, but I've yet to read the novel that this is all based on, the original All You Need Is Kill, so I can only compare the manga to the movie. But anyway, having explained that, let's get on with what the story about. So what is All You Need Is Kill about? All You Need Is Kill follows a character called Kaiji Kiryu, which is this guy right here. And Kaiji has joined the United Defense Forces in order to defend the Earth against this alien race called Mimics. Now, Mimics are an alien race, and they've recently invaded Earth, and every time a mimic goes near water, it turns poisonous. When they cross land, it turns into desert. Essentially, they're making the Earth uninhabitable for humans, more inhabitable for themselves. But the point is, humans can't accept that, so they attack the mimics, and now there's this huge war that's been fought for like decades. And Kaiji has just joined the forces. He's a rookie, and this is his first combat situation. He goes into battle, he dies. But as soon as he dies, he actually ends up back in his bunk bed the previous day. And it takes him a little while to figure out, oh wait, I'm looping and I'm retaining all my memories. But as soon as, well, not as soon, but once he's figured that out, pretty soon he figures out, I can become a better soldier. I'll learn how to kill mimics, I'll learn, you know, how to move my body, how to, you know, dodge the enemy, how to become a better soldier, because I retain all my memories from all those previous situations. So basically, every time he goes into battle, he'll learn something new about the mimics, or about how to fight, etc, etc, and he'll be able to bring that into his next loop. And while all that's happening, there's also this incredibly powerful soldier called Rita Vratoski, and she is the strongest soldier in the entire United Defense Force. And of course, as soon as Kaiji starts becoming much stronger, she starts to take note of him. And that's how the story begins. So, basically, story. What do I think about it? Just like the film, I wasn't too keen on the very beginning. Like, in this case, it's pretty much the first chapter. Basically, I found it a bit too kind of standard, a bit too normal in comparison to a lot of other science fiction, you know, novels and stories and all that. But, of course it does seem that, because the real kind of meat of the story is when it begins to loop over and over again, and he starts to, you know, realize, oh, I can take advantage of this. And it's really interesting to see how Kaiji takes advantage of that. Not only is he training himself up in battle, but he's also, like, you know, figuring out all the stuff that's happening. So, like, he figures out how to sneak by a bunch of guards to go into, like, an engineering bay or whatever. And, you know, he times out everything perfectly so he'll know what'll happen there, and there. So, from that perspective, very interesting. Now, we saw similar-ish stuff happen in the film, but I do think that there is a lot more interesting cause and effect stuff that happens in this story. Like, for example, there was a particularly interesting scene, I thought, where he's in the restaurant, or the cafeteria, and something happens, like completely different happens than normal, simply because he's so tired from the looping that he looks really tired. So something completely different happens then. I thought that was very interesting, that idea that simply looking tired will cause, you know, a completely sequence of events. So, you know, I found that very interesting. Now, the ending in the manga, I will say I prefer to the movie. The movie's ending was a bit too Hollywood, I would say. A bit too kind of normal action movie ending. A bit predictable and a bit too neatly tied in a bow. You know, everything kind of ends very happily in the film. In the manga, it's a lot more tragic, the ending. It's a lot more unpredictable. You know, I was quite surprised as I approached the ending as to how different it was in comparison to the film. You know, overall I found it to be a more satisfying ending, even though it isn't anywhere near as happy as the movie, simply because I do find it more, you know, realistic and engaging, you know. So yeah, overall, story-wise, I prefer the manga. Now, characters, really there's only two major characters in this manga, excluding the mimics of course, and that is Kaiji Kiriya and Rita Vertosky. Just before that though, I'm going to just briefly touch on supporting characters. There's a good few of them in the manga. There was a lot of them in the movie, but I will say that they are better developed in the manga than they are in the movie. In the movie, a lot of them just felt, sorry for this Star Trek usage, red shirts, you know, to die constantly over and over for William Cage. That was Kaiji Kiriya in the movie. Whereas in the manga, we do get to find out a bit more about them. Like, for example, there's a character called Sarge. We get to realize that he's an actual, he's a veteran of the war. He's been fighting for a long time. And there's a couple of other characters as well. There's a friend of Kaiji's who he meets every time he loops. Like, he's the first person he meets. There's also the cafeteria woman, the engineering girl. And since I, you know, obviously I can't remember their names, my problem there is they're not the greatest characters ever, but they serve their purposes much better than in the movie. They also like work much better in this whole cause and effect thing. Now, about Kaiji Kiriya himself. Kaiji is quite a different character to William Cage in the film. Kaiji is a lot more brave and a lot more honorable, I guess, at the beginning. Essentially, William Cage is quite a coward in the movie, whereas Kaiji joined the military of his own choice. And, you know, he wants to help defend his homeland against the mimics, etc., etc. Also, the development of Kaiji is a lot darker than that in comparison to the movie. In the movie, I remember there was a couple of sequences where the whole looping thing kind of played for laughs, which worked quite effectively in the movie. I just want to reiterate, I did actually enjoy the movie. But I just want to say that the way that the loopings affects Kaiji is a lot darker, and it kind of shows him a bit more mentally unstable as the manga continues. Now, he doesn't quite ever go into insane, but he does become a bit... We see the looping's effects on him a lot more clearly than we do on William Cage in the movie, which, you know, he's a bit, you know, immune to it almost in terms of mental fatigue. Now, Rita Vertosky in the manga is completely different than that of the movie's Rita Vertosky. Rita in the manga, first of all, we actually get her backstory, her proper backstory. In the movie, we got a couple of hints here and there, a couple of lines from William Cage kind of mentioning her past, but in general, we didn't get to find out that much. Whereas Rita, we actually get a couple of chapters devoted to her background, and we see, you know, her tragic history and why she joined the military, and, you know, how she got her name, because she doesn't look like a Rita Vertosky, which sounds to me to be a bit Eastern European. Also, not only that, she's a lot stronger, I'd say, and more aggressive than she is in the movie, which I liked. You know, I remember reading a comment that was like, the manga and novels Rita Vertosky would kick the crap out of the movies Rita Vertosky. And not only that, I also liked how she played at the end of played out, I should say, at the end of the manga. In the movie, I thought she devolved slightly into, you know, kind of movie heroine, whereas in the manga, she kind of fulfills her role, so to speak, for Kaiji. So I think that she's a lot better character in the manga than she is in the movie. I'm just going to say that out. Now, so overall, from a story and character perspective, better than the movie. Artwork now. This is actually drawn by one of my favorite mangaka artists, Takeshi Obata. Now, some of you might be thinking, I kind of know that name, Takeshi Obata. And that is because you would know him from Death Note, Bakuman, Hikaru no Go, Ralgrad, and the new Gyaku Hote that's being published in the English version of Weekly Shonen Jump. And he does a superb job as usual in this. You know, a lot of detail, very hard to imagine. Like, I'm always blown away that he can actually do these chapters in a week. Because there's so much detail and so much style in them that it's just really hard to imagine. Now, I will say that one thing that I found particularly interesting was his paneling. Now, unfortunately, a lot of his paneling isn't quite as dynamic as in, you know, Death Note and Bakuman the more original works, I should say, rather than adaptations. But he does a very interesting thing in this manga, I noticed, which is he starts exploring the way that panels work across pages. Like, so for example, there's this bit here, which, as you can see, features a panel that goes across 2 pages, but it's not necessarily like a boom page, because there's actually a couple of panels underneath both on each page. And there's a couple of other ones as well. There's actually a particularly dynamic one. If I can just find it for one moment. Here it is. Which also, like, it shows... I really do love the paneling on this page. Like, it just conveys the movement of the action so superbly. In particular, that middle one, with him swinging down the axe. Like, you just get such a conveyance of momentum, both from the lining of the axe and also from the arrangement of the panel in the middle. So I did think that from a paneling perspective, in general, a bit more basic in comparison to the you know, Death Note Bakuman, but I do think that it was very interesting that he was like, you could see that he was kind of experimenting with the way that the panels worked across pages in this. So from that perspective, I was very you know, pleasantly surprised with that. And of course, as I said, the actual detail and character designs and all that are as good as ever. Now, about Viz's treatment of this. Now, Viz chose to actually publish this all in 1 volume. So in Japan, it was released as 2 volumes, but in English, they chose just simply to put them together, so it's a 2-in-1 essentially. And also another thing I liked was the fact that they actually have both covers from the Japanese edition in this. So essentially, this is the first cover. That was for Volume 1 in Japan, starring Kaiji Kiriya, whereas the back, we actually have the cover for the 2nd volume, which is Rita Vertowski. So I liked that. There's a color pages at the beginning, which is very nice. They preserved the color pages. And the paper quality itself is very nice in general. Also, surprisingly light. I mean, this is well over 400 pages, but doesn't really feel that much heavier than a one volume manga. Overall, Viz did pretty bang up. Oh, and also, I shouldn't forget, the trim size is bigger than normal. They actually, I think they used closer to a kind of a Viz signature size for this. So if we get my trusty Yatsuba, we have, we can see that it is this much bigger, so, as you can see. So it's quite a bit gained at the top and a little bit at the side. So it really allows Takeshi Obata's artwork to actually kind of breathe. We are able to see a lot of the details a lot better. Because Takeshi Obata's artwork, yeah, I will just say, really does benefit from, you know, enlargement. Like, it is absolutely gorgeous. So Viz did a really, really good treatment of the manga through this edition. So overall, All You Need Is Kill, the manga, what do I think about it? Overall, I prefer it to the film. Not to say that the film is bad. I still enjoyed the film. But I do think that the manga is a better experience. I'm also assuming, of course I haven't read the novel, but I'm also assuming from what I've heard that it is a closer adaptation to the novel. So anyway, point is, I definitely recommend this manga. It is very good. It is not amazing, but it is definitely well worth a read. It's very short, you know, as I said, it's essentially 2 volumes long. And it's a pretty good read. It brings a lot of ideas, particularly about, you know, cause and effect. As well as, you know, the effect of repetition on the human mind and, you know, all that jazz. And of course, the artwork from Takeshi Obata is absolutely superb. Brought out in particular by this beautiful edition. So overall, I definitely recommend that you pick up All You Need Is Kill, the manga. It is a very enjoyable read and I would recommend it. So, thanks for watching. Hopefully that was, you know, informative and useful. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye-bye.